Hello. We're at the point where Jesus is sent to Herod. We're starting in Luke chapter 23, verse 8. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased, because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he hoped to see him perform some miracle. He plied with him many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. Kind of short passage for Herod, but that's because there's not much to it. Herod never believed in Jesus, but the man loves his entertainment. Miracles, wisdom, he wanted a show. But Jesus wanted to be silent for Herod more than anyone else. Herod was just all around someone who would not accept redemption. So Herod got frustrated and they bullied Jesus even more. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them, "You brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence, and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore I will punish him and then release him." Pilate was a man that was easily swayed, but at least he had a bit of integrity before he completely caved in. Jesus was innocent, and it should have been plain for everyone to see. Pilate was hoping that punishment would be enough to please the crowd, but death was the one and only thing they would be pleased with at this point. Let's go to Mark 15:6. Now it was the custom at the feast to release a prisoner whom the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in the uprising. Matthew 27:17. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Christ?" For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. This tells us what the crowd wanted more than anything. See, Barabbas wasn't an enemy of the people. He was a hero of the people. He was a rebel, a successful one too. This tells us plain and simple what the people wanted out of the Messiah. They wanted a revolutionist, a violent one at that, one that would overthrow Rome. Funny enough, Jesus was a bit of a revolutionist himself, but not in the way of violence, which did not please the crowd. But let me ask you, have things changed today? Are we looking for the Prince of Peace, or are we looking for an overthrower? A man of violence, a man of revolution. I wouldn't condemn the Jews of the past because I see the Christian church as no different. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message. "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." This is certainly an interesting thing. It seems like this is a God-given dream. A vision, one could even say. I wish we could know what it was. She could have seen the recent events to transpire, Jesus with the crown of thorns on a cross. Maybe she saw more. Maybe she saw Jesus ruling the entire earth with might and power. She suffered because she was scared. She was the only one in this entire instance that was scared of Jesus. We should be scared of Jesus. He has authority like no other. He is certainly an interesting being. He's the only friend that we are to be scared of. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Christ?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. That's not how sin works. I wish I could just wash my hands, then I would not be guilty. But no. This is more or less the final concluding statements of the two groups. If you ask, most people say that the Romans killed Jesus. Are you sure about that? Yeah, the Romans tortured him, put him up on a cross that Rome owned, and he died on that cross. But who really crucified Jesus here? Pilate and the Romans were by no means exempt from sin, but let's be honest, Pilate just straight up didn't want to do this. He was not for it. The Jews were straight up proud of it. They were like, if we want to be remembered for one thing, we want to be remembered for this. Thank God for the books of the apostles, where they're like, actually, we are not proud of that. What about the Christian church today? What are we proud of? Do you think just because we are believers that we are incapable of hurting God? No, we are very capable of hurting God. My conclusion from this is that the believers can be the problem even more than the non-believers. We always need times of reflection and meditation, hopefully sooner rather than later, so that we will recognize our sin and change our ways. Thanks for listening.